Alright, everything I'm saying is now being recorded. You can tell right here when it's ticking that everything is being recorded. Now, what I'm doing today is a test review. Okay? We are doing the test review using the actual test, which means the questions will be the same. Okay? So, you have no excuse. Coming in here Wednesday, which is when we're taking the test, you have no excuse not to do well. Okay? Everything that we go over today obviously will be on the test because this is the actual test. Okay? Now I have removed all the answer choices, but the questions and the shapes and the pictures, everything is the exact same. Alright? Now, what I'm going to do is those of you who are signed up for Remind 101, this evening you will get a text message. That text message will have a link to this YouTube video. You can then use this YouTube video to do more studying for this test. Yes, I'm not just recording it so that I can have my own little private video. Alright? I'm going to put this on YouTube, and then you can access it on YouTube, and you can give yourself something to study. If you can't read your handwriting, Brent Walker, then you'll be able to look at this, and you'll be able to read my handwriting. Oh, don't look at me like that. You know you write Chinese letters. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into this. Write down everything that you think is important. Because like I said, all of this stuff is going to be on there. Alright, so it's important that you understand it.
So they're kind of like notes?
Yes, they're kind of like notes. Alright, number one. Be quiet. Number one says, Taisha screen prints t-shirts for sale at the county fair. She has rented a 10-foot by 12-foot booth for $72 per day, but decides she needs more room. If she can rent a 12-foot by 14-foot booth for the same price per square foot, what is the daily charge for the larger booth? Now, this is one of our harder problems. Alright? Which is why you need to understand how to set it up. So this is something that you might want to study. Now, she knows that these booths are going to cost the same per square foot. So the first thing we've got to figure out is how many square feet we're dealing with. Alright? Square feet is area. So if we're looking at the first booth, it is 10 by 12. To find the area, you just do 12 times 10. You get 120. So, the first booth had a square footage of 120. For that, she paid $72. Now, that proportion is going to stay the same. So I'm going to set up a proportion. Alright. I do not know how much this new booth is going to cost. But I can figure out its square footage because it's 12 by 14. I'm going to say 14 times 12.
168.
Is 168. Oh, not 186. Well, let me erase that.
168.
Alright. So, now that we have a proportion, we can go ahead and we can solve for this. Now, what I want to do first is I want to go ahead and reduce the fraction that we can. Alright? 120 over 72 does reduce. Alright? Now, you can go reduce it by 12, reduce it by 2, reduce it by 2, and it'll take forever. I'm going to tell you right now, it does reduce by 12. Alright? How many times does 12 go into 120?
10.
How many times does 12 go into 72? Alright, so that took it down real quick. Alright, we can reduce it one more time by 2. What's 10 divided by 2?
5.
And 6 divided by 2?
3.
Alright, so we've reduced it down to 5 over 3. So, for every 5 square feet, we're paying $3. Alright, there is 168. God, I keep doing that. There's 168 square feet. We want to know how much that would cost. Now, the way that I would do this, alright, and we learned this last year, you talked about it this year with Coach McGann. When you have a proportion set up, multiply diagonally and then divide across. That will solve for this right here. So, we multiply diagonally. That's 168 times 3. gives us 504. Once we have 504, we're going to divide across by 5. Well, that's 10. So 100.8. So how much money is it going to cost for 168 square feet? $100.80. There you go. Now, as I've said before, same test. Same test. Alright. That's number one. Like I said, this is one of our more difficult problems. Number two. Tanner completed a scale drawing of his room. The actual length of his room is 18 feet, and the actual width is 15 feet. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture because I'm a nerd like that. I have to draw it out. Alright, we have 18 feet and 15 feet. The scale drawing has a width of 2.5 and a length we don't know. Alright, so I'm going to put X. Now, just like we did on number one, yes sir?
Are we going to keep the test review? Like, after the test too? Or do we turn it into?
The papers you're doing right now?
Yeah.
This is for you to study. Alright, just like we did on number one, we're going to set up a proportion. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and say we need to do width over length. So, if we're looking at the original room, the actual room, what would my fraction be for width over length? What's my actual width? What's my actual length? Alright, so there's my fraction that represents my actual room. That can be reduced by what? By 3. That's going to give me 5 over 6. Now, we're going to compare that to our drawing over here. What's my width of my drawing? 2.5. And we don't know the length. Now, we could do the same thing we did last time where we multiply diagonally and divide. But I'm just going to say, how do you get from 5 to 2.5?
Divide by 2.
Either divide by 2 or multiply by 0.5. Both things are the same. That's the same thing. So, I'm just going to divide by 2 down here. What's 6 divided by 2?
3.
There you go. This problem is not necessarily difficult, but you do have to know how to set it up. If you don't know how to set it up, study this.
Coach, how many questions are on there?
Enough. There are enough questions. Alright. Number 3. This one is very easy. This is one of the easier problems on the test. Meredith has a photo with dimensions of 16 inches long and 20 inches wide. Alright, so 16 by 20. Now, here's the thing about this question that throws people off. Which one of these numbers is my width? 20. Now, most of the time, alright, we process the longer number as being the width. Alright, in this case, or the longer number is being the length. But in this case, the longer number is the width, so it throws people off. And the length is 16. Now, on the new photo, the length is 10. And we don't know the width. Alright?
1.6.
So we've got to figure out what we multiply 16 by to get 10. Alright? Or if we just set it up as a proportion, it would look something like this. Okay? Well, I can go ahead and reduce 16 over 20 by 4. That would become 4 over 5. Well, what times 4 will give me 10? We divide, and you get 2.5. So, we multiply by 2.5 up here. We're going to multiply by 2.5 down here.
12.5.
So our width is 12.5. Questions on that one? This one, the first three are all very similar in the fact that you're going to set up a proportion. Now, this one, the one on number 3, the main thing to make sure you realize is that the longer number is the width. Now, that messed me up earlier. I messed up on this problem because usually the longer number is what they consider the length. Alright, but since they flip it over, you got to make sure you catch that. Alright. Number 4. The graph below shows the triangle DEF is a dilation of ABC. What is the scale factor used to create DEF? Alright, well, which one came first? ABC. This big triangle is what came first. Alright, which means we went from 7.5 to 3. We went from 10 to 4. So we've got to figure out what our scale factor is. What did we multiply 10 by to get 4? Alright, well, 10 times something equals 4. All you got to do is divide. 4 by 10 is 0.4. So our scale factor is 0.4. Easy enough?
Sure. 10 times, quotation marks, 4, 10, 4, 1, 0.
Alright, now the next question I don't think anyone's going to miss. We have a rectangular pyramid. It wants to know the top view. Well, if we look down, what is the shape of the base? Some of you will write a square. Some of you will do a rectangle.
I'll do a rectangle.
Both are correct because a square is a rectangle. Alright? Now, if you're looking straight down, the peak of the pyramid is going to make a dot, and all the corners are going to connect to that dot. Done. That's it. That's all you got to do. Alright, you guys are pretty good at doing that, so that shouldn't be, I don't think very many people will miss that one. Number 6, we're drawing a bird's eye view, and we get this shape right here. We want to know which one of these down here will give us that shape. Well, I think y'all are all pretty good at this. Which one will give us that shape? This first one. We've got 3. We've got 1 in the middle. And we've got 3. It makes that H-looking shape, which is what we wanted to begin with. Alright? You guys are pretty good at doing those. Alright, number 7. It wants a side view, which means we're looking at it from right here. Well, we're going to see the legs of the chair. We're going to see the actual seat, the back of the chair, and the armrest, right? That's what it would look like from the side. Well, that's the first answer right there. I don't think anybody will miss that one either. Number 8. It says, which quadrant in the coordinate plane below has negative x and a positive y? Alright, well, if we're starting here in the middle, if I'm going to the right, are my x's positive or negative? Positive. Going to the left is negative. Going up and going down. Alright, So, if we look back in the problem, it says we want negative x's. Well, our x's get negative when we go to the left, which means we can count this out and we can count this out. And then we want a positive y. Well, y's get positive when we go up, so we can count this out. All we're left with is quadrant 2. Alright. That's page 3. Alright. Now 9. 9, the key word on this one. It shows us a circle with a radius of 3, and the question is, which of these points could be located on the circle? Key word here is on. Does it say in the circle?
No, it says on.
It's on the circle. It needs to be on the black line. If we plot these points, negative 2 and 2, let me see here. Negative 2 and 2, I go left 2 and up 2. That puts me right there. That is on the circle, so that one works out. Next we got 4 and 5. That's over 4 and up 5. That's outside of the circle, so it doesn't work. 1 and 3 is inside the circle. It doesn't work. 3 and 2 is inside the circle. It doesn't work. This first one is the only one on the circle. Alright, so we got to make sure we pick up that letter right there, on.
So basically, number 9, you write the letter on.
What?
We write on number 9.
Well, it tells you on. You just got to make sure you realize which one it's talking about. Because a lot of people will pick the one that's inside the circle. Alright, number 10. This one's important that you pay attention to this because it can throw you off. We have a wooden box in the shape of a rectangular prism. Here's a rectangular prism. It is 48 inches long, 18 inches wide, and 12 inches tall. What is the closest to the volume of the box in cubic feet? It wants feet. Alright, now all the measurements it gave us are in inches, so we got to make sure we change this into feet. And the thing that you must realize is you've got to change it into feet before you solve the volume. If you multiply them out and get the volume first, you're going to get the question wrong. Okay? So, what's 48 divided by 12?
48 divided by 4
Is 4. What's 12 divided by 12?
1.
Anyone know what 18 divided by 12 is?
1 6.
Well, let's take a look. 12 goes into 18 one time. 12 goes into 60 5 times, and so we get 1.5. Now we're able to solve for our volume. Volume is length times width times height. Alright, so we just got to multiply these three together. What's 1 times 1.5?
1.5.
1.5
Times 4.
6.
6.
There's our answer. Make sure you change it into feet before you multiply them. Alright, number 11. Now, this one I missed this one earlier. This is another one that I messed up on. So make sure you pay attention to how this works. It wants to know the area of this semicircle, and it wants us to round to the nearest square inch. Okay? Well, formula for area of a circle is pi r squared. I will give you that on Wednesday, even though I hope by now you know this one. Lance, pick your head up. Alright, so it tells us that we're going to use 3.14 as pi. So now we need to figure out what r squared is. Well, what's our radius? 15. If I square 15, does anyone know what that gives me? 15 times 15.
Don't worry, it's doing that.
225. 15 times 15 is 225. Alright? So now we have 3.14 times 225. Alright? So, we've got some fun multiplication here. Alright, we had 2 decimal places up here. We'll have 2 decimal places down here. So 706.5. Now, that is the area of a full circle. Do we want a full circle?
No.
We want a half circle. So we need to divide this by 2. You get 353.25. Now, if you put 353.25 as your answer, I'll probably count it right. But it does want us to round it to the nearest square inch. If I round it to the nearest whole inch, what's it going to round to? 353.
What?
2 rounds down.
But that's a 5.
It would round to a 3, and then 3 rounds down.
That's a 5. 355.25. So,
That's 1/4 of it, so it's down.
Alright, that's page 4. Number 12, one of our harder problems. It says Jamisa is designing a house that has a small roof over the porch and a large one over the main part of the house. The triangles formed on each roof are isosceles. Alright, well that's important. If the isosceles triangles formed by these roofs are similar, what is the length to the nearest foot of the perimeter of the larger triangle? Show your work in finding this perimeter length. Alright, so if this right here is 5, we know this is 5 because it's isosceles. Should make this also an x. So we've got to solve what x is. So we don't know at this point. To do this, again, we're going to set up a proportion. Alright, we're going to put the top line over the base. Alright, so on the smaller triangle, what would my fraction be? If I'm doing the top line over the base.
rewind. What's that? The T over.
The top line over the base, that's the fraction we're going to make. Top line would be 5, the base is 7, so we're going to say 5 over 7. Now on the larger triangle, my top line is an x, and my bottom line is a 24. So we've set up a proportion. Alright, we're going to go ahead and solve this proportion like we did earlier. Multiply diagonal and divide across. 5 times 24 is 120. Alright. Now we got to do 120 divided by 7. That's 1. Alright, I get 17.1 and it's going to keep on going. Alright, it's going to go on for a long time. So, if I look back though, it wants to the nearest foot. So I can go ahead and round this. 17.1 is pretty close to what? 17. So let's go ahead and just put 17 in. Alright, so now that we've solved for x, we can find our perimeter, which is what it's asking for. So make sure you continue working it. A lot of y'all will find 17 and just stop. Alright. So 58 is our perimeter. Okay? Alright, moving over to number 13. Myra's sailboat has a small glass window that allows light to enter the cabin. The window is shaped like a rectangle with semicircles on both ends and has the dimensions shown in the diagram below. Which of the measures, which are not listed on here, is closest to the area of the glass window. Alright, well, we got to figure out what the area of this shape is. Okay, well, first off, let's find the area of this rectangle. That's easy. Get that out of the way. 8 times 6 is 48. So that's the area of that inside little rectangle. We'll knock that one out real easy. Now, I have a half circle and a half circle. What happens if I put those together? I get a whole circle. So let's find the area of that whole circle. Again, it's pi r squared is our formula. Alright, so we got 3.14 times, what's my radius? 8 is my diameter. What's my radius? 4. Alright, radius is halfway. So it's 4. Now what's 4 squared? 16. Alright, so we got to do 3.14 times 16. Alright, we get 50.24 plus this 48. We can't forget about this portion, right? That gives me 98.24. That is the area of that shape. Now we'll just pick the multiple choice answer that is closest to that. Alright, now 14. This is the one that people have been getting pretty confused about. I'm not going to even read the question. What we have is a table. We have a table here, and in order to fill in this table, we have to figure out two things. Okay? The first is, what do I multiply my width by to get my length? And the next one is, what do I multiply my length by to get my width? These are going to be two different numbers. Okay? Now, to figure these out, we have to use these two numbers. These two numbers are the only ones that we can compare. So, if I'm starting going from width to length, I've got to figure out 4 times something equals 6. How do I solve that? 6 divided by 4. Product goes inside. Alright? 4 goes into 6 once. We get 1.5. So, going from width to length, we're going to multiply by 1.5. Now, going from length to width, 6 times something will equal 4. So we're going to divide 4 by 6. We get 0.6 repeating. What is 0.6 repeating equal to? Not 1/3.
Fraction
2/3. 2/3. Alright. And it's important that you put that in fraction form because you cannot multiply by 0.6 repeating. But you can multiply by 2/3. So, let's fill in the ones that we can go from width to length first. That would be 1. 1 times 1.5. And then 8. 8 times 1.5 is 12. Alright? So that takes care of width to length. Now we need to do length to width. 2 times 2/3. 2 times 2?
4.
1 times 3? 4/3. Finally, 15 times 2/3. 15 times 2.
7, 36,
15 times 2. 30. Over 3. 30 over 3 is equal to what? 10 over 1, which is equal to 10. There we go. Alright, there's been some confusion on that one. Alright, if you need to know how to set it up, there you go. Again, I'm not changing the numbers on you. So that's something, if you're having significant trouble on that one, this would be the one to study. I think there's 2 more. Alright. Triangle XYZ has the coordinates -6, 6, -2, 6, and -3, 2. Alright, let's go ahead and graph that. -6, 6, we go left 6, up 6. Right there. -2, 6, we're going to go left 2, up 6. -3, 2, we're going to go left 3, up 2. There's our triangle. Now, it wants us to translate or slide 5 units to the right and 3 units up. So for each one, we need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. We need to count that way for each one. 5 to the right and 3 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Connect it. And you have your translated triangle. Right? We did a lot of those in class. I think that you guys have gotten pretty good at it. Alright. Now, this is our last problem. This is the most missed problem last year. By far, the most missed problem. It shouldn't be. It says, triangle PQR has the vertices. P is 2 and 4, so right 2, up 4. That's P. Q was 8 and 8. 8 over, 8 up. And R was 8 and 4. There's our triangle. It says there was a dilation using the scale factor 0.25. What does dilation mean? Making it bigger or smaller. In this case, it's going to be smaller. Alright? All you have to do is multiply every point by 0.25. So if we take P, which was 2 and 4, we're going to multiply by 0.25, which is the same as dividing by 4. So 2 divided by 4 is 0.5. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So 0.5 and 1. There's my new P. Q goes from 8, 8. We multiply both by 0.25, so we get 2, 2. And then finally, R was 8, 4. We divide both by 4, we get 2 and 1. There you go. So now you have 2 triangles, the large original one and the dilated smaller one. Alright? This was the number 1 missed problem last year, and I really don't think it's that difficult. Alright, now 16 problems. That's the entire test. Alright? So you have what we did today. We're going to study it again tomorrow. You're going to have this video on YouTube. So there's no excuse not to make good grades on this test, especially considering we reviewed using the actual test.